in the media really negative about Morgantown and said, like, we're not interested in any of this stuff. I was like, Jenny, can you send us an update on what was said during, like, what happened during the meeting? Can you send us an update? And she's told me
I mean, I haven't gotten anything yet.
She told me 3 times that she would, and she, like, I still don't know what they talked about.
When was it?
How long ago did you
That
guys
had to be
go
like-
to DOT? Like 2 months ago? Cam,
I don't think
when
it
did you
was.
guys have that DOT meeting in Charleston? Like 2 months ago?
Oh, I thought it was longer than that.
No, well, we had one before that.
Oh, okay. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, it was about a year ago.
Okay.
The first one.
Yeah.
And then
Did she take notes? Jenny handing out cheese?
She told me there was snakes in the back.
There was baby dying, like 5 of them. I told her whatever's left I'm taking home. So I don't know if this is her way to get back in this. We ready?
Are we all here? There's someone. No one more?
All right. I now call this Committee of the Whole in the Mon County Commission Chambers, 243 High Street, in the 2nd floor, Morgantown, West Virginia, 26505 on Tuesday, November 28, 2023 at 7:19 p.m. to order. First up today, we will have a presentation. Let me make quick note, since we have a larger audience than normal. The Committee of the Whole meeting for the Morgantown is intended to provide an opportunity for us, the council, to receive information, ask questions, as well as identify policy options in an informal setting. No official action is taken at these meetings, and at this Committee of the Whole meeting, the following matters are scheduled. If we can be started today with our presentation from the Student Government Association Safety Walk presentation. I heard myself. By President Madison Santameyer, Haley Day, and Matt Oliverio. Welcome.
Thank you all. I'm not sure if this is going to advance properly. Okay. Do you mind if I make that full screen?
Go for it.
You gonna scooch this way?
And can you see?
Didn't know if Brian needed a scooch a little. There we go.
All right, we'll try it this time. My name is Matthew Olivero. Not familiar with this mic.
And I'm Haley Day. I'm currently serving as the local governance liaison for the Student Government Association.
And I'm a senator, and Madison couldn't be here today, unfortunately, so you just have the two of us. We're here today to present to you about our Fall 2023 Safety and Accessibility Walk, and this pretty much serves as a report, although we will have a more detailed report that I will make sure you are all in receipt of when it is finished. So I'll give a little bit of an introduction. Do I need to speak into the mic, or is it fine?
You're great.
Okay. I'll give a little bit of an introduction. We did the walk on October 17th, 2023, in coordination with relevant stakeholders, who I will talk about on the next slide. We divided the walk into 3 sections. We did the downtown campus, we did the Sunnyside area, and then we did the Evansdale campus and areas around Oakland Hall. And we tried to be conscious of streets and roads that are maintained by the city, because we felt like that would be a more actionable path for us to take than just looking at things like Beechhurst or county roads. We used the Quick Capture app, which I'll talk about a little bit later, to record our reports. And we had 308 total, 265 were categorized, 43 were uncategorized, and I'll get a little bit more later into kind of the nature of those reports. And we want to give our thanks to Drew Gatlin from the City Engineer's Office, who was very instrumental in the facilitation of this entire project. So in terms of participation, we had around 15 members of SGA. Those are all students, obviously. We had senators, we had executives, all the like. Drew from the City Engineer's Office, and then a whole host of people from WVU, including Ron, who's with us tonight, Corey Ferris, Adina students. We had people from UPD there, and we had some consultants who were working on behalf of the state there as well. So we really had a broad range of people, and we split them up among the 3 areas and tried to keep it pretty even in terms of representation from each sort of group there. So these are the focus areas. I just drew these with my hand on a computer, so they're not super great, but downtown is on the left there. Obviously, these are pretty large, so we didn't cover the entire area in excruciating detail, but we got the kind of 10,000-foot view. See, that's kind of bounded by High Street down there, Beechhurst to the west, and then to the north, Campus Drive. Sunnyside is pretty run-of-the-mill Sunnyside. Campus Drive to the south, Beechhurst to the west, University to the northeast. And then Evansdale was the largest area, although for our purposes tonight, not as useful because most of that is university-maintained property, so we're going to keep that pretty brief. Key takeaways that we had from the walk. There's a general need for more crosswalks and repainting of existing crosswalk markings. There are a couple areas of pretty high-density sidewalk damage, including Spruce Street, North High Street, 6th Street, and the north side of Campus Drive. And we are aware that on the southern side of Campus Drive, there's going to be a realignment type project there. So there are reports, but we didn't really mention that. There's some sidewalk gaps along the Oakland Street and Harding Avenue in the immediate vicinity of Oakland Hall. Those were areas that we will try to talk about later as well. And a general need for lighting fixes and improvements, especially in the Sunnyside area. There are a couple areas that are relatively dark where we noted some need for some improvement there. One positive I'll note is that the flashing crosswalk signs are great. Big fan of those. Very positive development, and we believe that those should be implemented at as many crosswalks as possible because as a driver, I'm sure you all are drivers, driving at night, it's incredibly advantageous to be able to see a flashing light when you know a pedestrian is going to be crossing. So I'm just going to take you through just a general breakdown of reports by category. That's a little small, but I'll run by it. Sidewalks are at the top there with 152. That's not super instructive because there are a lot of reports that were, we call them kind of superfluous, a lot of sidewalk reports that aren't super actionable. So I wouldn't worry too much about that number. But the crossings and lighting is what we think is more important because those are more actionable concerns that aren't just like a little chip here and there. And the lighting things are, in our estimation, pretty easy to fix. There are also some accessibility concerns, but I'll note that at the end, I can make sure that you all have a more detailed report. So we're not going to dive too much into specific things. This is more of a 10,000-foot view. We kind of break it down by subcategory. Obviously, sidewalk repairs, that giant bar, that's a little bit of a misleading thing. But we do think lighting repair is important there. We had almost 60 reports there, and a couple crosswalk repairs entering frequencies above 20, which we think is also notable. Haley will.
So after the completion of our safety walk, we wanted to select a few main priorities that we felt were pertinent to our student concerns and things that we observed on our walk. So this is one of them. We're requesting a crosswalk at the split between Willie Street and University Avenue. This is a highly trafficked crossing for students, especially at night. We have a lot of sororities along that street and a lot of high traffic during the nighttime. And so we would love to have a crosswalk there, especially a flashing crossing sign if that's preferred. We understand at the moment that this may be a county street, it's a county route that's under county jurisdiction, but we felt that it would be best to facilitate this discussion with you and possibly get that pushed forward to the county as well. And then next one. And then this is one that's also high priority for us. There's a non-functioning walk signal at the corner of Campus Drive and University Avenue, right at the intersection where Benji's and the LSB all intersect. This is a problem that has went back as far as 2022. Unfortunately, we did have a traffic accident last year where a student was hit. This is because the non-functioning signal is also part of a blind corner, so cars turning right when they're going is it north on University Ave? If they're turning right
Yeah,
on
or
red,
left onto
you
campus.
can't exactly see around the corner, so you can't see pedestrians crossing that way. And so this is something that we felt was very, very pertinent to our student concerns. And after we had that accident, unfortunately last year, we felt that this was something that we needed to be addressed. And then also in kind of congruence with our safety walk, the Student Government Association sent out a safety and accessibility survey. This was sent out through our UNews and eNews programs, our emails to all of the universities, so all of our students received these survey options. Some things we wanted to highlight was that 83% of the respondents to our survey said that safety and accessibility, especially in the city, were very important or important in their decision to continue living and studying here. And also, a plurality of respondents felt that they were unsafe or somewhat unsafe in the city at night. This was largely in areas like High Street, downtown, especially at night. One thing that we saw as a reflection that we also saw in our safety walk was the lack of well-lit and well-maintained sidewalks in the city. That was a big concern for students that they expressed in the survey as well. But however, as a plus, we did get the feedback that convenient and affordable transportation options are working and that students really appreciate that. And we also held a town hall recently, I believe it was in October, where we discussed safety and accessibility with our students as well. And they do say that they really did appreciate the knowledge of the security cameras that have been placed downtown. They say it really does help them feel more safe if there were a crime to be committed, that they would have help solving that, and that those cameras and that visibility really ensures that they feel safe at night, especially in areas like downtown. So.
All right, so this is, if anyone's interested in scanning this, this is how we made the reports on the walk. So there's an app that you can get. So you don't have to like go through the whole thing now, but just like it's for illustrative purposes. Like you can scan this QR code. It'll take you, when you download the app, you'll be able to access basically like the suite of tools that we use when we were reporting the different discrete complaints or deficiencies, and those all populate into a database that basically like it's like a dashboard where we can see all the results, and we can see you can click on them and see like the pictures, and they're like geolocated, and so in effect these can be reported at any time. So if anyone sees something that a deficiency that they find, something they think should be fixed, they can take a picture of that in the app, they can report it, and then it populates into a database where I can see it. Also, Drew from the city engineer's office can see it, which is probably more important. And so that I thought was important just for us to have there. And again, I'll make sure to this PowerPoint that you guys have access, or somebody has access to this slideshow to view again. And I'll open it for questions, but I will say before we do that, we are working on a more finalized version of the report. This is obviously just a brief presentation. We're working on a more detailed summary report that I hope to have in the coming week or so, and we're going to be pushing that through on the SGA side as in the form of a bill, and I'll make sure that gets sent out to everyone as well, which I think will be more in depth if anyone has any specific concerns about the stuff that we talked about today. But otherwise, any questions for us?
All right.
I have a question. I noticed you were looking at University and Willie, that corner section where I believe the Swarties are. Myself and the mayor took a walk down there recently. So I'm looking at across Whitehall. Did you identify that area too?
Yeah, between the library and Whitehall.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I've been looking into myself, because it's very dark and there's a lot of foot traffic there at night. So I want you to know that that's something we've already been discussing, and it's an area of high priority for me.
Well, that's good to hear.
In that vein, my question that I had was about the university split. You said you were requesting a crosswalk there. What part? Where the split is?
I think it would almost make sense to do one where you could kind of leverage where the pavement kind of juts out between the two roads, and then I would imagine like a crosswalk from the library side to that,
Okay.
and then from that side to, I think there's a sorority house there in that area, so it'd almost be, I guess, kind of akin to where there's that little island on University further up the road, and then it would kind of be cut by that. little
Over by
pavement.
Area 1.
So like both,
Yeah.
Well, I would,
in front of the church.
yeah, and if I could, So I would imagine it would
across
be-
University
yeah,
to the,
something like this, right, where we take
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
the one side, and then this is like the middle of the crosswalk, and then it's like right over.
Across
But I mean,
both
it,
roads. Okay.
I think anything in that general vicinity, all right, would
Yeah.
be sufficient there.
I agree.
But it might just be a little easier to use that already existing pavement to kind of like bridge that gap. Yeah.
so you guys do something nice where you're talking about, you know, things that you're requesting that you see, but then good things that you've noticed. So, right on the corner, chemistry building is that white?
Clark Hall.
Clark.
Clark, yeah.
Yeah, right on the corner of Clark, there is a super bright one little light. And I think that's in response to you all at some previous walk making a request. But it's not enough. So when you go around that corner, you get this little patch of light there, which is great, the plus side, but then there are other places that kind of on the city side of the street, we could do more, and the university could do more on the university side of the street, and it would just, that whole area, when we took our walk, we did it, like, as it was getting dark, so we could really see, what was going on, but it's even things like, some of those lights are just plain, some of the higher Cobra headlights are just burnt out.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty, you know, that's low hanging fruit. We should be able to handle that, I would think, between the university and the city. But then also we need more pedestrian scale lighting to fill in the gaps so that we had, so it was more well done. But yeah, so that's been that's this topic for a while. So it would be really great to work on it, and it's perfect because it's heading toward our budget season. So this is the right time to get your report in because then there's the possibility of items being included in this year's budget. So.
And I'll
please-
say on the
please get
univer-
that- Please get that turned in and
Yes.
keep talking to Drew.
I'll say on the university side, we are going to make sure that they have it as well,
Yeah.
obviously. So hopefully on their end, they'll be able to do that sort of maintenance too with the lights and things like that. So hopefully that'll be in the next week or so.
But we have really appreciated the steps that the city's taken into considering pedestrian safety in the city as well. The flashing lights, the flashing cross sections, those have been fantastic. I've noticed those. I love the ones on University Ave. Patterson recently got some as well, and those are definitely extremely helpful. So, thank you guys.
So those were from a collaboration between the university and the county and the city, which is really cool that
Yeah.
for a number of years, every year, we would put something in and that's how those all happened. So keep asking and then we'll all need to keep collaborating and responding.
Definitely plan to do that for sure.
Anyone else?
No, great job.
I will say thank you for hosting the event last night. It was great. I got to speak with both of you and many other students about some of your concerns about things in the city, safety, as well as other initiatives that you all are working on. And I would just reiterate that I think many people on council, it was great seeing the list of people who participated in your safety walks. And I know Matt and I talked about if they were not on Tuesdays at 7,
Yeah.
more of us would participate. This is where we usually are on Tuesdays at 7.
Yeah.
But if you
That
do
came from
manage to
above.
get
That
that in,
wasn't-
in Wednesday in the spring, I would love to participate with you all.
We'll definitely consider that for sure. He was like, "Can you please invite the city
Well, we'll-
council
we'll-
members?" And I was like, "They have a meeting that Tuesday on Tuesday
Yeah, I
at
think
7."
it used to be on Wednesdays, didn't it?
As long as I've been here, it's been on Tuesdays, and I can never go.
Well,
Maybe we'll shoot for
we
Thursdays.
did used to go, and I think, I don't know if it was on the opposite Tuesday or if it was on Wednesdays, but it's, somehow we used to be able to go easier.
It's probably something that's gone changed over time
Yeah.
as current administrations change. So probably something like that. But we'll bring that up for sure, especially as the next administration comes in. That's something that we'll definitely focus
And
on.
you all are gonna send us?
Yes.
All right.
For
Well, you all did a fantastic job. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for bringing all that to our attention.
Thank
If
you.
we have no other questions?
No, thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
your time.
guys.
much.
Thank you so much.
I guess I'll-
Get the USB.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have a presentation from the Botanic Gardens with our executive director, Philip Smith.
Ah,
I was like, no, this
You must have been unable to attend.
Yes, and I just found out. So I apologize. I just saw the agenda earlier today because I'm here for the tree board. But Philip, he just messed up. He thought it was next Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
So I am not prepared but I can answer any questions.
No, we'll just have
Okay.
him back when he has his
Okay,
slideshow. And
that sounds better.
Yeah, that's
All right,
better.
sorry about that.
yeah, you could just do tree board as you came.
All right. Well, then on that note, the Morgantown Public Library's annual report with Director Sarah Palfrey. I think they seem to be closing it to get it to work.
That is a magic.
Sarah, did I say your last name correctly?
Palfrey.
Palfrey?
Palfrey,
Palfrey?
yeah,
All right.
Palfrey, but I'll answer to
How about Sarah.
Good evening, council. It's good to see you. I'm glad to be back for another year for our annual report. And I'm really pleased this year because I feel like we've had a lot of hard reports over the last few years, and I feel like this one is a little bit more, I can be a little more upbeat. But I want to start off by mentioning the library staff, and in particular with me tonight is James Spears, who is the assistant director and also the manager of the Morgantown Library, the actual branch on Spruce Street. We've been through a lot of staff over the last few years. I think it was almost 2/3 of the staff was ready to retire when I started, and then COVID, and there's been a lot of changeover, but we have probably the strongest team at the moment that we've had since I got there. And not that we haven't always had talented people, but the teamwork that we see on a day-to-day basis, not just at the Morgantown location, but across branches, and people really working together to make us work as a system, has made my job so much easier, which I'm definitely in favor of. So I always like to point back to our mission and core values. Our mission is enriching our community through open access to information, resources, and experiences. And we do this by always trying to center everything through service, learning, stories, and inclusion. We provide innovative services that are welcoming and fun for our community. We foster community well-being by offering programs, resources, and experiences. We believe stories are powerful and add meaning and value to our lives, especially when they're shared with others. And we honor human diversity by offering access to resources that present multiple views, and we provide inclusive opportunities for all. This is actually a picture of the inside of my brain. This is everything we do has these 4 components, right? And, we apply those core values to our staff as in a place to work. We want people to work in a collaborative learning environment and to be a great employer within the city. We apply our core values to our community. We respond to community needs as they arise. Our facilities should be safe, modern, welcoming spaces that our staff is glad to come to and our community can call home. And for our budget, responsible spending for a sustainable future. Libraries are forever, and we take that part very seriously. So I've got a few highlights for you, but also I'm going to try and keep it brief because you do have quite an agenda this evening. So if I don't touch on something that you're just so excited to hear about, let me know. So it's back. We're back to this in a big way. We are in person in the building. We are out in the community, and we still have a very strong digital presence. So The last couple of years have been a little up and down on any of those three at different moments, depending on the community and the climate, but it can feel at times like we're going in three directions at once, but we try and keep it in a triangle and keep it moving along. First and foremost, collections. I have a real love-hate relationship with the phrase more than books. That's what people always want to say about the library when they're excited about it, right? But you have to tell people it's more than books. It is. But books are at the core of what we do. But we do also offer a lot of other things. Audiobooks, DVDs. We still have birdwatching kits through a partnership with the Sierra Club. Board games, puzzles, and coming soon at least one location, video games for borrowing, and Raise a Reader kits, which are like take your own story time home with you. Last year, we loaned out 189,738 items. So that's an 8% increase over the year before. Which is pretty exciting because not a lot of libraries get to say that. And, the last few years, particularly, 2020 through the end of 2021, statistics were we just didn't know what they were doing. They were so different than past trends. But we're pretty pleased with that return of that growth. 23,000 of those items are media, so DVD and audiobooks, CDs. We still have a CD collection downtown that you can borrow from too. Children's items are at 119,000 plus. So the vast majority of that being borrowed at the downtown location. And the growth for that is more like 10%. And then people borrowed over 1,000 board games. So the collection is about a little over 100 different titles of board games, and they went out 1,000 times last year. It's a great way to get started with, some of the kids age out of the really entry-level cooperative play games real fast. And then sometimes you can only play Candyland so many times, and you need to try something new. So it's a great way to try out some new games without investing a lot of your own money. And then as you age up into the way more complicated games, the ones that take hours and are significant costs for most families, we've seen a lot of people come in and get them, and then they go to purchase them because they've played them so many times. So it's been a great collection. We started that collection 2 years ago. We have an internal grant process for staff that we call our Startup Awards. So if there's a project you want to start, once a year you fill out an application, you come up with a budget and a plan, and you have to talk to all the other people on the staff that you need in order for it to work. And then we review and we fund as many of them as we can. But that's probably been our most successful one because it's gone on for a few years and it now has a home in our regular budget. But we do it every year in the fall. So yes, everybody expects libraries to have books, but like anything else in the world, it takes a lot of effort these days to stay in front of people. So we've added in a new book newsletter. It's called Wowbrary. The great part on the staff end is it doesn't take a lot of work. We used to copy and paste all these images in to try and make things look great, and it was really time intensive, and we couldn't get them out regularly. This goes out every Saturday. You can see everything that the library added that week. You can just look at it by subject areas, or you can browse everything, including DVDs. I've got some handouts for you that has a QR code on it if you want to sign up for it, and you can see it also includes our digital magazines too. So right now they're like all holiday cooking, so proceed with caution. So if the books are our soul, programs are our heart, right? This is the part that we all missed so terribly in 2020. but it is back in a big way. We held 590 unique programs last year at our 6 locations, partner sites, and online. We had 8,353 participants and nearly 5,000 views of our digital programs. So this is everything from major New York Times bestselling author, online virtual visits, to story time. Choose Your Own Adventure book club is still going strong. Dungeons and Dragons. We have a relatively new nonfiction book club that is small but mighty. And we had 662 summer reading program registrations in the summer of 22. This is a little bit behind because that's how we report them for the state. So the 22 summer sticks with that year. That was an all-time high since I've been here. And we saw almost 130,000 people last year. We average about 9,000 visits a month at the downtown library. This is just a small sampling of some of our partners this year. We couldn't ask for better neighbors downtown and throughout the county. Main Street Morgantown has been a great partner to us. We work regularly with the schools and Bow Park. We offer programs in the summer at some of the parks, which is a great way to sort of get into some of the other neighborhoods that maybe aren't as easy to get to the library from. And really and truly, I think our relationship with the city administration, staff, and departments has really strengthened to a new level over the last year, and I'm very thankful for that. So our digital library is still going strong too, 176,000 digital borrows last year. That includes everything from taking from online language learning to ebooks, audiobooks. You can currently check out a binge pass to all your Hallmark holiday movies on the library. So 7 days of watching the same movie over and over again. But there's magazines, there's classes. We added Canopy in a little over a year ago, so there's streaming documentaries and independent films. So the great news, 14% increase in borrows from last year, and looking back, we're at a 60% increase from fiscal year 19. It is now about 48% of our total circulation happens online. But with that, of course, then the costs are also increasing. Our digital library expenditures in fiscal year 19 were just under $68,000, and last year they were $106,000. We did have a grant to supplement that last year for about $10,000 of just K through 12 ebooks, which the school system is now making available through a platform that keeps kids in grade level reading, but uses the materials that we've bought. So it's very early in the release of that, but we're really excited to see them on board with that too. So the downside of being popular, particularly when it comes to Hoopla, I literally get accosted by 10-year-olds at the farmer's market wanting to know why they can't have more Hoopla borrows, which I love that they're that invested in it. But library card holders can borrow 6 a month. And you can see there in somewhat tiny print from just over the last 3 years, we've gone from our pretty typical cost of about $1,800 a month to $4,000 a month. So we have not increased the number of items people can borrow. That's just increased usage. I think we add about 100 new users a month to the Libby app Overdrive, and we add about 40 or 50 to Hoopla, and there's about 1,000 people, unique users every month on it, between 1,000 and 1,500. So the blue on the bottom is what our borrows were in fiscal year 21, and the little green one at the top, that's way above everything else, is just since July. Like, that's heading towards unsustainable. We don't want to limit borrows even more, but if we have to, we can put a price cap on where once our monthly max is hit, no matter what day in the month it is, then nobody gets to borrow anymore. That makes people very angry. We hope not to do that, but we are keeping an eye on it, and also reevaluating some of our lesser used platforms and possibly discontinuing some of those in order to put the resources where they're most popular.
So what are those, I don't want to interrupt, but I
Yeah.
do want to interrupt. What are those figures? Are per month or per
Per month,
year?
that's just for October of
Just
those
for
years.
October in those special, in
And
those
just
particular
those years, yep. Which is it's a typical month usage, not extraordinary. Yeah,
Popular.
popular. I hear being popular is good. But it is, and the libraries are dealing with this in lots of different ways. Some are adding like geolocation verifications so that you can't use something outside of your county, or like that your card would be attached, whatever zip code is attached to your card, you'd be able to use. And that helps to cut back on people who just go get cards from lots of different libraries. So we've got more options before we, cut it off, but we're watching it closely because it's taking a big chunk out of our budget for everything else. On the upside, the state library has added in some digital things that we actually something we were just considering doing away with, so now we get to keep it for free. And they've brought back some things that we have done away with due to cost, like the 24/7 access to tutor.com. They actually have a better plan that we do, where I think it's from 10 to 10 you get access to a live tutor. So anybody in the state can access that now, where that was one that the cost per use was so high that we had to do away with it about a year and a half ago. And so now it's back, and someone else is paying for it, which is even better. Other things that we have in the works, extended expiration dates. We've worked for the past few years with the middle schools, 2 middle schools in particular, to do card drives to get every 6th grader a library card, and then those cards expire the next year, and the teachers want them to continue to be able to read on their Chromebooks, but then we need the parent to talk to us to renew the card, and it's been less successful. So we went to our consortium and talked to them about if we could move beyond the 1-year expiration date to a 3-year, so that we could really get the kids used to daily use of the online books, and we hope it will remove a barrier for kids having active library cards by letting them go a little bit longer. So as cards have been coming up, we've been moving to the 3-year time. Auto renewals, same thing. If no one else has placed a hold on the book that you currently have checked out, instead of sending you a message that says, please return the book, we will now send you a message that says, please return the book, but it's been renewed for you, so that people don't have to worry about, even though we haven't charged late fines for a number of years, people are still worried that they're going to have to pay them. But we think it'll also more accurately reflect the use of the materials if, instead of them being overdue, they're checked out. And so this will give people a couple more notices in order to get them back. And it won't, people get stressed out about returning their books. We all have overdue books. It's fine. Just bring them back. We will also be, of course, pursuing the renewal of our countywide levy in 2024. Hopefully in the primary election. Of course, that has to be approved by a county commission. sometime in early January. Elevator modernization. If you've ever wanted to know what the inside of a elevator looks like when it doesn't have any walls or elevator, stop by. It is currently being updated. Thanks to City Council in general and Councilor Trumbull in particular. We have our 1968 vintage elevator is now going to be, we have pushed the modernization as far as you can without calling it a brand new elevator. The cracked buttons will be replaced. The pit has been inspected, and the project is just moving right along. They're doing a great job, and we expect it to be done before Christmas at this point. So,
Great.
yes, super exciting.
Ahead of schedule.
Knock on wood. No, so far so good. Really, there's the things we expected to possibly be a problem were not problems. So all that's left is the unexpected, right? And we know how that goes. We're also working on updating our phone system so that we can easily transfer calls between all locations, so that if we're busy at one location, or like a day like today, we couldn't open the Cheat branch today due to the roads. Once the whole system is in, we'd be able to answer their phone at the Morgantown library, so we could still renew people's books and keep people from traveling out when they're not open. This is also the year that our strategic plan is due to the state, and the board has been working on that. It's due by the end of December, and it's pretty well finished, and I will be glad to share that as soon as we get all the typos out of it. And I've got a sneak peek for you. So we did get a grant from the Public Library Association called Digital Learn, which we will be offering some entry-level computer classes at a couple of locations in December and January to help improve people's digital literacy skills. We are also working very hard. Abby at our Cheat location is our main lead on this. April 13th, mark your calendars, at the Farmers Market Pavilion. We will be there all day with Story Fest. So this will be like a Moonlight Market style event, but focused around authors and storytellers, performers, creators, people who create stories, and we want to show the community that the community also is responsible for creating our story, and that the library is part of that journey with them. So we're really excited about it. It's something we've wanted to do for a lot of years, but we've got the right staff in place for it now. And Reading Dragons. So Reading Dragons will premiere in January. You may have heard that there's a significant reading delay for a lot of our elementary students at this point. Well, those elementary students who've experienced that are actually well on their way to moving on to middle school at this point. And so we're not reading teachers, but we are reading encouragers, right? It's our job and our great honor and privilege to help people discover reading as a love and a joy. And so we do that in the summer through incentives and things like that. And we do it for adults a couple of times a year by giving them prizes. And so we're going to move it to a winter session this year to encourage kids. And I've got handouts for you so you can see. But what it's going to be is it's a reading log, and for every 30 minutes that they track on their tracker, they can come in and they can pick out a dragon card, which if you're familiar with Pokemon, you will recognize immediately. There's red, green, and blue. You can play multiple games with the cards as you collect them. Everybody gets 3 to start just from registering. So you can immediately play like a rock, paper, scissors version of the game. And then as you read more, you can collect dragon families, It starts off with the egg, moves to the adult, so then it expands to more like a war style game where within the suit, it depends on the age, you can win. So once a month, we invite the kids in. They can come and play. They can hang out and read. They can trade cards. It should really hit home with a lot of our collectors, but it also gives you a good reason to walk it back in the library on a regular basis, because we can't say got to catch them all. We got to think of something else. But that's the idea, right? We got to catch them all as readers and get that love of reading in. Let them choose what they want to read. Not make it into another challenge. Like, it should be a challenge in a good way, in the fun way, not challenging in one more thing they need to do. So again, another thing we've kind of been sitting on for a little while and are really excited to put out into the world. Sam at the Clay Battelle branch drew our friendly dragon for us, reading the book there on our logo. Any questions? Anything I left out that you're dying to know about? Yeah.
When does Reading Dragons start?
January. The first Saturday in January will be our pizza kickoff party at all locations. So you can come in and get registered, have some pizza, get some great suggestions from library staff of where to start and what to read. And it's open for kids from kindergarten through 8th grade.
Sarah, you're doing amazing work.
You want to sign up for Reading Dragons, don't you?
Yeah, my wife just texted me about that. But
That's
so,
great.
can you use donations of board games? Because my wife would also be texting me about getting rid of some of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are you still having a problem with digital book licensing and the expense that you had?
Oh,
when we
I said
talked
I'd
about
keep
last
it
year?
short. Yes. I mean, I don't know where this is like a national solution. There's a couple states that have tried legislation about like fair pricing when it comes to things, because libraries are charged at a different rate for ebooks and e-audiobooks. Most things at this point have moved to they expire. So we pay $60 for a book, for an ebook that only one person can check out at a time. Because we're in a consortium with 11 libraries, there's 240 holds on that book, and it expires after 24 months, and we buy it again. So if there's 240 holds, we've probably bought 24 to 30 copies of that book at $60 a piece. Not us, like, combined with a consortium. It's not sustainable for libraries in general to continue on that way. There's been a little bit just sort of change of perception on behalf of the patrons, where like our younger patrons don't care about waiting, which is a strange twist, right? But our younger patrons care less about waiting for the books than our patrons who moved, I guess, from print books to digital books, where they're like, digital, I should have it immediately. And that's why they probably are all going to Hoopla, because that is immediate. Yeah, the cost is extraordinary. It's going to take intervention. Maryland has tried, New York has tried, I think Connecticut has tried a legal solution, both legislative and in the courts, to fight it. But shockingly, the publishers have a lot more money than libraries, and it hasn't had much success yet. So then it becomes one of the things I'm looking at doing is basically as part of our strategic plan, what is our collection development plan then for digital books, so that we can realign our expectations and not panic when we see, something gets turned into a movie and now all of these things have expired and we have to re-buy everything again. Like, Book Talk does it to us too, where they pick out some YA book from 15 years ago that now everybody wants to read, and they shoot through the roof. But I think for us, from a staff perspective, having a clearer vision of how many copies is probably our next step, so that we don't. So that we can spend the money responsibly, and we can still buy new books, because otherwise I can spend my whole budget every month for Overdrive just on holds before I even get to new books or patron requests. So it's, I think it's an internal conversation for us at this point.
Can you describe to me in what ways those legislative efforts have failed in the other states?
I think they went after him in for libraries that purchase books with state money, it became that it was, because you can't negotiate the cost of it and there isn't anybody else to go to, it's a monopoly basically of who we can buy them from. That was one of the avenues that they took to explore, so that, that it was an unfair way to spend state money, that they were. I think that's been Maryland's approach to it. Others went after the publishers for price gouging, and again, because we have a limited number of places and platforms that, as libraries, that we can purchase these to offer to people. But so far, it's not been favorable. There's still a couple of cases out there.
Like going before courts?
I don't think the Maryland case is totally dead yet. They seem to have the strongest case so
argument?
far. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that really the difference between, I was going to ask what the difference between Hoopla and Libby was, and which one you find like better, or where, like, Libby is essentially you're buying a copy of an ebook, and then that's why I get ticked off when I have to wait 24 weeks. I'm like, I read a book in 3 days. What's taking you people so long?
I know.
But Hoopla is more immediate, and it's like you just pay per checkout.
Right.
The library doesn't necessarily buy it.
We don't buy any of the books on Hoopla. We don't get to choose what's on Hoopla. It's just a platform that we subscribe to, and then the books are priced between like 99 cents and $4.99 at checkout. And so I think we averaged just under at $3 on there. Overdrive, because the collection is so large and has existed for so long, it's like 30 cents a checkout for what we spend a year, and the cost per circulation. So we purchase the books for Overdrive / Libby, or we purchase the licenses in whatever form they are. There's still some one copy, one user where we get to keep them, but the prices of them have gone up drastically. There's a lot. Audiobooks are regularly more than $100 on there. So we all of us that purchase on that for that consortium, I think we've raised our threshold for where we buy more copies, which probably explains why there's so much more audiobook usage on Hoopla, because they also have that's sort of where they came from. Their company, their background is audiobooks, so they have a really good collection there too. But yeah, I know the wait is frustrating. I get texts from my son from the other room, like, why 0 of 0 copies available, can you buy this? Like, if you see 0 of 0 copies, please go to our website, fill out the form, and because there's literally thousands of books like that, we can't just buy them all when there's one hold. But if a patron uses our books request form or sends us an email, then we will try and purchase it if it's still available.
I use Libby a lot. I don't use Hoopla because I can't read it on my Kindle.
Yeah.
I read a lot. I feel like poor James, he's always like, this lady's back and she's saying hello to me like she's familiar to me. Like, I'm currently in the middle of book number 73, 74, and 75 for the year. I'm reading 3 at once. But yeah, I really like Libby, and I'm patient. I just find something else that's available. And I'd say like 60% of the books that I read probably come from the actual library. So I had 2 small questions. the digital literacy grant that you all, that's something you and I have talked, like a position you've been looking to add. Is the grant, are you using current staff or are you bringing in someone for that?
We're using current staff. I had applied for 3 different grants at that time, and I'd hoped that I would get 2 of them in order to turn it into a part-time position, and I got 1. So it wasn't enough money to hire somebody, so we were just going to supplement staff wages to take on this extra work. And we've had a couple people interested in doing it, and then for whatever reasons we're not able to. So we're actually kind of coming up against the deadline to get them done. But we've got 1 person doing the training now and hope to get some on the schedule soon.
And the startup competition kind of thing that you have, that you said the board game library came out of, what
Yes.
are some of the other things that you have funded through that? Like, that's really interesting to me.
We've done we did a Lego and STEM cart at Cheat. What does Clinton? Clinton did, they did cork tiles. Some of them are really small. They did cork tiles for their one wall so that they had a better place to display their 1,000 books before kindergarten participants. The very first year we did it, the idea was to just get people, they were afraid to spend their budgets, and everything that they asked for could have been spent out of their regular budget. It was just about changing the mindset about what we spend our money on. And so they've added in some story time things too, like musical instruments and cushions for the kids to sit on, things that could have come out, but when you've always got facility issues, when you're always saving money just in case something else happens, it's hard to spend a relatively small amount of money on those types of things when your budget's so small overall.
Yeah.
And so it kind of gave people a little freedom to experiment and do those things. Clay Patel has tablets that have games preloaded on them that are geared towards preschoolers. They've had those for a couple of years. Clinton added in a collection of like the 100 best movies. I forget whose list it was, but just added in movies into their DVD collection because their DVD budget's pretty small. So it's been a little all over the place.
Projects of varying size.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed seeing the library. I always make Connor go over and visit the library table at any event that we're at, like the pop-up plaza. You guys were doing activities, and like the wellness fair out at Milan Park track over the summer. We went out to see Pop Shop play, and you guys were there, and we've enjoyed. I saw you at the Moonlight Market as well. Do you have? And I didn't even realize, but do you still have these left?
Oh, yeah.
A $20 donation to the library will get you a nice heavy tote bag.
Get you the best tote bag there
and
is.
It's a very nice tote bag. My sister, who doesn't even live near Morgantown, when I picked one up for myself at the Moonlight Market, she also insisted on getting one because she just thought it was a cool bag. So those are still available if anyone's interested.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Sarah, great job. Is there any challenges that you're facing that we could directly help you with as council?
Oh, goodness. Well, our budget request will come in as always, and we appreciate your consideration on that front. I don't foresee any, the elevator was a huge project. We are still struggling, of course, with our plumbing situation. We've met with a couple of different engineers and different types of plumbing places to figure out what other options we have, but pretty much everybody walks in the door and is just like, yeah, this is tough. So, we're always, it's not always necessarily a monetary thing, just knowledge on that front. Nothing's coming in the building anymore, so that's great. It's still just the issue of getting everything out of the building. but I don't have a specific ask in that way, but just the continued support. I would like to meet with at least, one counselor. We do have concerns that the general at large, increased number of book challenges going on in the world. And if we could have a little time with one counselor to sort of go over what our process is about how we select books, so you could be aware, should that come up, you would be well informed. Not that I wouldn't, of course, be willing to answer questions, but you'd have a resource amongst yourselves to know how to handle those concerns as well.
I'd be happy to sit down and hear that.
Great. I look forward to it. I'll be in touch, Joe. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you very much. You guys do such a great job. My wife is an English teacher at South Middle. She helps run the program with getting the kids their library cards, as well as an avid user of your online book system. So I do appreciate everything that you do. And if we have no other questions, Sarah,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right, here's your QR codes to sign up for your newsletter and your Reading Dragons.
Thank you. Make my kids sign up for that. All right, Brian.
All right. Thank you, thank you. Next we have am I supposed to is it 1 and 1?
Yep.
All right. I didn't know if I was supposed to take 3. I thought we get all 3 dragon cards. It was like a
Brian.
Oh,
Sorting
Brian
them
got the
down here.
cards.
I didn't get any.
So you took all the cards?
You gotta
Okay.
earn them.
You're gonna have to.
No, I don't.
Bring her overage kid.
Yeah, no.
So cute.
Connor will be like, that looks like a My Little
I don't
Pony.
understand how you know which is more important or valuable.
I think it's just rock, paper, scissors.
I don't know. Fire.
Oh, this
Fire
Puts
will
out
put out water. Water will
Oh,
put out,
okay.
grass will put out water.
It's good, Gus.
Oh,
What'd you do, Ricky?
Ricky broke it.
Shut it too fast.
We had a system going. Lots of crackers.
Yeah. How long do you think we're going to be now?
It'll be at least an hour.
Ricky, you have to hit start and then you have to close it.
Does he close it all the way or leave it partly
No, they
open?
closed it all the way. Or you just drag it across. There it is. Don't move.
Yeah, I have to excuse that picture because that tree has been pruned out.
Yeah, I guess we pruned it, sorry. It's
All
not,
right.
it's not loading.
For
But
those
it
at
was a
home-
nice tree, nice red oak, so. My name's Dave Barnett, and this is
I'm Dan Brown.
and we're both on the tree board, and we want to thank you guys for asking us to come tonight to talk about what's been going on in 2023. I'd like to first start out and talk about our tree board members. This is who is on the tree board. Myself, Dan, Matt Cummins, who works for Mon Power, Greg Dahl, who is a university professor in urban forestry, Caitlin Deskins, who's the new city arborist as of May. Donna Foster is retired from the U.S. Forest Service. Joe Buchanan, city council rep, of course. Chelsea Hilty, a new member to the tree board. She has had a lot of experience in Pittsburgh trees. And of course, Marshetta Maupin, the urban landscape director, and John Weems, who is the retired Core Arboretum director. So just to give you a little brief early history, the tree board started in 1997 as the Urban Forestry Working Group, a collection of individuals in town that had a love for trees. Started in 1998. The tree board was officially recognized by the city of Morgantown. 1999, we became a Tree City USA and had the first Arbor Day celebration in the city. 2011 was the first citywide tree inventory. We partnered, the tree board did, with the U.S. Forest Service, and we went around the city and looked and managed all, go ahead.
Inventoried all the trees.
Inventoried all the trees and species. And that inventory is still being used today. 2019, one of the things the tree board really pushed is to get a city arborist. Nothing wrong with Marchetta's position, but she has a lot to do, and the city arborist would be designated to focusing on trees. And so in 2019, the first city, that was an achievement for sure. A couple different pictures. Of course, on the left, planting a tree, and then Dan sitting in front of the Tree City USA banner. So the tree board, as you guys all know, we're advisory. We advise city manager or his designee. That could be Marchetta, that could be Emily, that could be any one of you, whoever it might be. So these are some of the things we did this year on an advisory yes. So White Park trees, we ID'd to help with dam maintenance that MUB was going into. We made recommendations for trees on the Pleasant Street, which is going on right now. Soon to be, those tree pits will have trees in them, which will be awesome. Made recommendations for trees and shrubs to be planted in the Chestnut Street tree swale whenever that comes about. We made recommendations and helped prepare the tree bid for the White Park tree removal replacements. That's going on right now. We also met with the Woodburn Commission to make recommendations for types of trees and locations for plantings around that Woodburn Community Center. Of course, we planted a few trees. Here's a picture of when we planted a few trees for Arbor Day this fall. It was a much nicer day than it was on the actual Arbor Day down at the farmer's market. We assisted with mulching and root pruning on the High Street during the installation of the new tree pit borders. We also did a little bit more community outreach this year. We participated in the Monrail Trails handmade market. We handed out seedlings for Earth Day and that event there. We also gave away, we gave away the 100 tree seedlings. Arbor Day, we of course read the proclamation and handed out info about invasive pests, spotted lanternfly in particular. And we participated just recently in the Capitol Tree Christmas tree event, which was very successful. There's a couple pictures of that event. So we'll keep on helping Caitlin Deskins, who's the new city arborist in Marchetta, with the 2024 Tree City USA application. They're working on that now, so we will advise or help them with that when needed. We're planning more of an outreach. One of the outreach programs they're working on right now is with the Morgantown Library, just getting kids more interested in trees and the environment and all that goes along with that. We've been working on updating the contents of the approved tree and shrub list, which is in the ordinance. It'll be an easier tool for the community, for the citizen, for anybody to use to look for a tree and understand it a little bit better.
And used as a living document so that we can update it as we go along, because nurseries change some of the different varieties that they use, and so that can help out some.
Yep. So that would be coming down the pike. One of the things, this is some numbers from 2011. This is through iTree. At that time, we had approximately 1,300 trees, and the value of that was about 1.5 million. You can see that this picture, that the trees on High Street are a little bit bigger right now than it was in 2011, so they're doing pretty well. Those trees in particular, these are the benefits, the eco benefits from the trees. That's just the street trees. At the bottom, in the smaller print, you can see that if we have a 20% canopy, that includes private trees, which is not in that inventory. We're looking at a yearly or an annual basis of $345,000 in benefits to the trees in Morgantown. I'd just like to end it here about, we've all heard this, the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. And of course, the second best time is now. And that is a tree that went in not this year, but the year before. So that's the end, and we're open for questions.
Well, I like the picture of the guy with the shovel and the long hair. It was a good hair day for him.
Photoshopping man.
Yes.
Is that what it was? It was Photoshop. Yeah, I had to fill in my bald spot.
He photoshops himself into a lot of stuff.
No. I really wasn't. I really did get to Mars, just to be clear. Yes. With that said, do I have any questions?
No questions?
What is the tree board's role with helping identify and removing of invasive species? Do you all advise on that, or?
We do advise on that, and we can help with that. I mean, we have, and mainly it's the urban landscape director would take action and do the research. But at this point in time, she would come to us and ask us, what our opinion is.
So the tree heaven that were treated this past year along the rail trail and the river.
We helped with that initially, and we've actually helped do some of that work, at least marking the trees for the tree heaven come out in years past with Bow Park. So
great.
Yeah. So yeah, we're still advising. It's the perfect thing, right?
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I just have really appreciated your work through the years, and have, particularly recently when we've been working on invasives, I've been looking at some of what other communities have been doing with invasives, and it seems as though there's quite a bit of movement to remove some of those invasives, to release some of the other trees to grow well and help preserve whatever native plants are around after you remove the invasives. But so I appreciate your question. When you're making your plant lists now, what can we do for education with regard to plants to plant and not to plant? That then some of the invasives that come into the parks and really destroy the plant communities that are there, especially in the area kind of right along the trails, you can see where things have come in from elsewhere.
Right.
You all have gotten more into some of the education, and so anyway, I don't know what.
So the approved tree list right now does include a small section on trees that are not recommended.
Yeah.
And shrubs that are not recommended for planting. And they are indicated by invasive, or maybe not, they don't do that well in this zone, et cetera. So, and we will, we can continue to do that too.
Well,
even,
and-
yeah.
So in that
And-
update, you could update with
Yeah.
whatever the most
Right.
modern,
It's just like with a green ash.
yeah.
Having an insect come through and wiping out something that you wanted to tell somebody, well, that's not really the tree to pick,
No,
even though it might fit everything except the insect.
yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, it's important to have a living document that's updated regularly.
Evolving, yeah, definitely.
What about like burning bush?
Oh,
Invasive.
very.
Yeah, horrible.
Rosa Sharon,
White
But
Park. full of it.
people still plant them.
yes.
Yeah, it has to happen really from the nursery point that they're not offering them anymore. But, you know, as a city, you can not recommend that citizens plant that. You want
Well,
us.
and there are so many burning bush, as you say, that have been planted all over the university and throughout the city. These are going to go ahead and flower, and we will still have an invasive problem dealing with them, but the more that we can remove of them, the less of them to take root and be more of a problem.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest difference, because previously in the document you had, it just showed everything people could or should plant.
Right.
Which then, if it's not on there, then you can be like, well, maybe they just forgot to add it.
Right.
Whereas opposed to now, it'll say you really shouldn't add this.
Yeah, we want to make it a better tool for everybody to use.
Well, and they, you know, things like the American elm, there are so many different varieties that they have put out there, and yet some are good and some are not good. And as it goes, the names change on what's good, but usually an arborist or somebody who's dealt with trees has found the variety that works and is not the weaker of the ones. And so, you know, it's having this living document is a very good thing.
So,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Thank you all for
Well,
your
thank
work.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. And now we are at our final presentation of the evening with the Morgantown Utility Board semi-annual report. The General Manager, Mike McNulty.
Barbara's gonna lead off.
All right. Well, Barbara, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Barbara Parsons. I'm the chair of the Morgantown Utility Board. And having been invited tonight to make our presentation, one of the things that I like to do when I work on something is get a perspective. And so I thought I would offer a little bit of perspective tonight on water, as it is a history in Morgantown. So I'll begin by telling you that in the 1860s, Morgantown actually experienced its first water delivery system. Mr. John Edwards, who was a former slave from Virginia, came to Morgantown and decided that he would offer water in barrels, which he delivered on a cart pulled by a mule, and he would sell his water 15 cents for water from Decker's Creek and 10 cents a barrel from the Mon River. He recruited his family. It was so successful. He recruited family members from Virginia who came up and joined him in his endeavor, and they eventually settled on White Avenue, which became one of the first black neighborhoods in Morgantown. So that was the 1860s. In 1889, the first water main was brought to Morgantown through wooden pipes, one of which we have a piece in our facility at MUB. And it's very interesting to look at. So anytime you're out there, you can come to the boardroom and look at that. And the water came from Tibbs Run through these wooden pipes. So you can imagine it had quite a force flowing downhill from that area. The water, unfortunately, was unfiltered and untreated, but was much better quality than what was being offered at the time. So on September 6th, 1889, the Union Improvement Company opened this water main right here in front of the courthouse. And they put a fire plug down on what is essentially South University. And at one point in time, because they left it unattended, a group of boys, of course, wanting something to do, took a water hose from that water main and aimed it above the courthouse and over Patrick Henry's statue, which caused a great amount of fun for the whole entire neighborhood, and even the newspaper reported on it. So the newspaper said they threw a stream of water right into Patrick Henry's face on top of the courthouse pergola, several hundred feet over his head. The feat was cheered loudly and brought forth all the populace of Main Street to witness it. So we had a little bit of fun when we first got our water in Morgantown. Prior to that, water was primarily supplied by local wells, and these were often contaminated by sanitary pits, quote unquote, which could have been residential cisterns or places where sewage was dumped. Water barrels often held wiggle tails, and disease was rampant. Now, what do you think a wiggle tail is?
Parasite of some sort.
Mosquito larva. So, common preventable diseases included cholera, diarrhea, dysentery, hepatitis A, typhoid, and polio. In 1890, a national CDC report showed that in West Virginia, 41% of all deaths were children 10 or under. And the reason had a lot to do with the fact that we did not have clean, uncontaminated water. But in spite of the fact that people wanted clean water and sewer-free waterways, bond levies, the bane of everyone's existence, to develop a sewer system failed in 1889, in 1892, and in 1894. The preference at this time in terms of water was to find new water sources instead of eliminating contamination. So the constant quest was to find clean water, not to clean the water. The motto was, the solution to pollution is dilution. And to some extent today, that is still a motto. Or the way we did dilution was through rainfall. And in fact, there was a city council meeting on August the 28th, 1949, where the chairman of the Street and Grievances Committee was asked to address complaints regarding Deckers Creek. The councilman reported that, quote, "It is raining now, relieving the necessity of making a report concerning Deckers Creek question." So because it was raining, the solution to the pollution was dilution. So rainfall was the stated solution in the years including the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. In 1949, a city council meeting was informed that half the Morgantown sewage flowed into Deckers Creek. A filth pot, a menace to health and an eyesore, as it was reported in Morgantown Weekly Post. So even then, the Weekly Post was covering city council meetings, and water was quite often an issue. For 60 years, the Morgantown water system was managed by various private corporations. After extensive work by Mayor Elmer Prince, resulting in extensive boundary changes and changes to West Virginia code, the city passed the third reading of an ordinance to purchase the water system from the Morgantown Water Company, which was a subsidiary of American Water Works, which is a for-profit water company existing today and is, in fact, the largest in the nation. They paid $2.5 million for it. In 1950, the Water Commission was established to meet the needs of bonding agencies and to assign complete authority over the water system. In 1964, and I don't know about you, but 1964 is not that far back for me, And really, if you think about it, 100 years from the 1860s, when water was being carried in barrels, 100 years later, a sewage treatment plant was completed in Star City. Now, in 1964, I was here in Morgantown as a high school student attending the World Affairs Institute, sponsored by West Virginia University. And when I think that I was here in Morgantown when they had the first sewage treatment plant open, I'm amazed. Think about it. That's not that, to me, it's not that far back. Planning began in the 50s for this facility, but it served only Morgantown and Star City. In 1972, the Clean Water Act was passed, which set national quality standards and required an upgrade to the new water treatment facility that was finished in 1964. This did not sit well with Morgantown officials, because they'd spent a lot of money getting to the point of having the water treatment plant, and now they were having to upgrade. And in addition, while they had done this, Westover and Granville had yet to construct any sort of treatment facility and continued to dump raw sewage into the river and local streams. So you have Morgantown being progressive and the surrounding area still dumping sewage into the water. Things became so contentious that in 1976, federal marshals appeared at a city council meeting with an order requiring secondary treatment. The federal government did not require a single treatment plant, but it was the most affordable solution. Sanitary flows from Westover and other locations were conveyed to Star City Wastewater Treatment Plant. In 1984, upgrades were completed to the wastewater treatment plant in Star City. In 1987, the city dissolved the sanitary board and integrated the Water Commission into a new Morgantown Utility Board, with complete management and oversight of both the water and sewer systems. In 2002, the Department of Environmental Protection and the Environmental Protection Agency required stormwater management, which was assigned to the Morgantown Utility Board. In 2012, we had an upgrade to the water treatment plant on Don Knotts Boulevard. And in 2021, we had a massive upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant in Star City. In 2023, we constructed a new water reservoir. These projects were the largest investment by a public utility in West Virginia. Now, in 1960, MUB purchased the property for a reservoir, which we now call the Flagle Dam, the Flagle Reservoir. Today, we continue to try to be forward-thinking because what we do takes time. It takes time to purchase the property, it takes time to plan, it takes time to find the funding, and then it takes time to implement. So we continue to think about and to plan for and to implement stormwater management, protect public health, reduce combined sewer outflows, absorb other water and sewer utilities, remain committed to good financial management on behalf of our ratepayers, continue to support economic development through expert services and delivery, and we do this through our 142 employees, 18 of whom are at the water treatment plant, 24 at the wastewater treatment plant in Star City, 16 engineering employees, 56 shop employees who maintain 2.4 million feet of water lines and 2 million feet of wastewater lines, and 28 office employees, including financial services. We have a $45 million net worth and an $8.8 million annual payroll. So you can see we've come a long way from Mr. Edwards and his mule. Mike.
Hi, good evening. I'm Mike McNulty, General Manager of the Morgantown Utility Board. I've got some handouts, a little bit old school tonight, but you can follow along. You might pass
Yeah, I can
some
just
around,
pass them
that'd
down,
be
Mike.
great. Thank you. So Counselor Harshbarger and I, we were able to talk about some of the projects that he thought might be nice for us to highlight this evening. And of course, if you have other questions about projects, we can try to answer those questions as well. So our first project up tonight is the Cheat Lake Wastewater Treatment Plant, which you've probably been seeing about in the news, in local news, as well as our read-aheads and so forth. And I'm sure Councilor Harshbarger's talked about them. But we're at a point where we need to increase the capacity of the treatment plant out there. The growth is overtaking what the plant can handle, especially during wet weather periods. When we're looking at this, as Barbara said, looking at the future, we'd be looking at a 20-year plan here. So we would build out now for the next 20 years. And this would allow us to meet all the federal and state regulations for water quality. You know, Cheat Lake is the water body that receives the effluent from the treatment plant, which is a very popular recreational area here in Mon County and surrounding areas. So we were looking at that as to increase the capacity there, as well as the Whites Run pump station. So we're going to upgrade the entire plant really we're adding a whole new unit and upgrading existing units. I won't go through every little piece of the upgrade, but I do include it in the handout. But, you know, we're going to have more energy efficiency, which is we're always after, reduce that carbon footprint, to reduce our costs the best way we can. So if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt and ask.
And Mike, that wastewater treatment plant is bumping up against what percent capacity when it's running full?
We are 100% when it is running full bore. Yeah, when we have, especially during wet weather periods. So yes, we're at the point where we've got to make these upgrades. I mean, we have an engineering firm. They've already completed the preliminary engineering report. They're now doing final design, and we have bi-weekly meetings with them. So we're moving forward, and we're also, you know, funding is always a question. So we're looking at different and innovative ways to fund this project.
Do you have a question about?
I just was curious whether that project required more land or whether you had enough land available.
We do have enough land. The utility board had the foresight to purchase the old driving range. And so there should be enough land to handle this upgrade, and if another one is going to be needed in 25 years.
Good forethought.
Yes, that the board and the management team, yes, they were thinking ahead. So the next project is the Pocono Run Sanitary Sewer, Stormwater, and Stream Restoration Project. Council has approved a $1 million ARPA grant to the utility board as well as the county commission, and MUB will be responsible for the rest of the funding for that project. We're going to replace about 3,000 feet of existing clay sanitary sewer pipe, which is in terrible condition, about 500 feet of stormwater pipe, and we're going to restore about 5,000 feet of stream. This work will begin around the stadium parking lot on the side of Willowdale Road and in between Richland Avenue and Randolph Road to Hoffman Avenue and Bradley Street. So we're going to make some major improvements there for the customers. I think there's about 500 in that area, and that'll include some new construction as well that's going on.
Did I recently read that there's a holdup on this project or something, like some right-of-way acquisition or something?
Yes, you did. So we are experiencing the challenges with out-of-town owners, and I do appreciate.
Aren't we all?
Yes. So we meet every month with senior staff from the city, and so they've offered to help us in tracking down and with information they have. So that may help us speed up the process some.
Okay.
Speaking of property, our next project, the Dinsmore Tire Site. Of course, SMUB purchased that some time ago for the expectation if we ever need to expand the water treatment plant, that would be the perfect area to move into. Right now, we did receive the $500,000 EPA Brownfields cleanup grant. So we're very excited. We've had our public meeting just recently, taking input. A lot of discussion about recreation, as you could imagine. Right now, the engineers are looking at an upgrade of our water treatment plant. They have not recommended a site yet for some of those upgrades. So we're not real sure when we're going to need the property, but if we don't need that property at that time, I'm sure we can work out some wonderful accommodations.
Great.
It's I expect that we're going to see the bid documents for raising the Dinsmore building and the old bike shop building soon. And so I know that's one of the worst eyesores in Morgantown. And it'd be nice to get rid of that. As you can see, there's been a fire down there. There's a lot of graffiti. It's awful. And so we'll all be glad to get rid of that thing.
Is it within the realm of possibility to upgrade that to recreational remediation?
Yes.
And that's not out of the question at the moment.
Pardon me?
Cost and thinking, that's not out of the question.
I don't think so at this point. Of course, you never know until the bids actually come in what you're going to be looking at, but right now we're planning on it.
Thank you.
So with the water treatment plant upgrade, we have hired Strand Associates. They've done most of the work for us in the past at the plant, and they are in the process of preparing a preliminary engineering report right now. One of our major concerns are high service pumps. Some of those date back to circa 1940. And as you can imagine, they are not very energy efficient, and they are way past their useful life. They have been repaired. Other upgrades will include the replacement of chemical feed equipment, the modernization and expansion of lab facilities, some additional office space, and sedimentation basin repairs. We're going to also, as part of this project, include some distribution system improvements. This would be the existing water mains serving the Evansdale area and potentially replacing the Union Water Booster Station and some of the water distribution mains in the Saberton and Union areas. You might recall that this spring we had to ask for voluntary conservation out in the Cheat Lake area. That was first, I understand, that we had such a dry spring, which I would point out during the construction of the dam, we couldn't get 2 weeks of dry weather. Once it's built.
When you're trying to fill.
When we're trying to fill the thing, exactly, Counselor. You're trying to fill it, you can't get rain. And so that's it's a growth. The demand, the growth is there, the demand is there, so we're having to address that as well. We need to address it. We're looking at automated meter reading. Right now, we still read meters the old-fashioned way. We pull lids, we read the meter, we record it, we move on. We have a number of those meters are inside, especially in Morgantown, in our businesses and residential accommodations, and we're looking at upgrading and moving forward, and that way we can get actual readings all the time. We don't have to depend on meeting a customer and getting access, and which is a challenge. So some of the other things we have coming up, we have some partnerships with neighboring utilities. Most recently, Cheapview PSD. As many of you know, that Glenn Stadden, who was the chairman there for many years, had passed away. When Mr. Stadden passed, the board reached out to MUB and said, can you guys come in and help us? But MUB has been helping Cheapview for over 20 years. We've been providing meter reading, billing, collection, and operation and maintenance on an as-needed basis. What's important to note here is that 80% of those customers are already MUB customers. They're part of our Cheat Lake wastewater system. So we're already serving those customers. So it's very, just a natural progression for MUB to acquire the system. And I think it's also, a lot of people don't realize this because the time has passed, but since the late 1980s, the legislature and the Public Service Commission have been promoting consolidation, mergers, acquisitions, anywhere they can find efficiencies. And that's the biggest thing is the efficiencies that we have with an acquisition like this. We were already billing the utility. Now, for our funds and revenues rather, now we'll just be billing the customers direct. There will be no other party in between. They had a board meeting this evening, and they had passed the resolution for the acquisition. And now this has to go to the county commission as well, because those PSDs are created by the county.
What kind of, what's the state of their system? What kind of condition is it in?
It's in good condition, and they are very financially healthy.
Okay. Are their rates still higher than regular MUB customers?
Yes,
10 or 12
they
years
are.
ago when I worked at MUB, they were
They are.
significantly higher.
It says adding an additional 4,000. Is that 4,000 include? Because you said you already had 80% of their customers. Does that 4,000 include the 80, or is that the 20?
That includes.
Okay, so really we're adding just 20% of the 4,000.
Right. They would be, yes, they would be new in that sense.
Okay.
We have had some discussions with the city of Westover. As you know, Westover has some really big, nice projects under development right now. Holland Avenue, that's been a big topic of discussion. That's the replacement of old clay terracotta pipe. That would be a nice project, especially for the reduction of inflow and infiltration of rainwater. They're also going to upgrade their main lift station that pumps sewage across the river to MUB system. And it's going to be complete replacement. And so they are in the process. They are in design right now. They're also in the development of their long-term control plan, which MUB is also developing a long-term control plan right now. We're updating ours. When I should have said updating, not developing actually, but we're updating our long-term control plan as well. And we do want to see that long-term control plan after it's finished and approved by DEP. We have to get ours approved by DEP as well. And so it will be interesting to see what projects come out that the engineers will recommend. It's kind of a roadmap for your future, what projects you're going to be looking at long term. So those are the highlights this evening that we had talked about. If you have any other questions, I have the senior staff with me this evening as well. They can answer questions if need be.
I have one that the national government is interested in making sure that municipalities look at their lead pipes. And I talked to you about this before, and you indicated that we have surprisingly fewer lead pipes than you might think, or not as much of a lead pipe problem. But
We I believe are in the end of our inventory.
yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, but you were inventorying, so I just wanted to hear kind of whatever the status was of
I'm
that.
going to ask Rich Rogers to come up and address that. His team is overseeing the project, and I think he could maybe give a little bit more thorough answer than I could.
Okay, and he's not responsible personally for how much lead pipe there is or isn't, just good to know what our status is.
Sure. So EPA has a mandate of having the inventory for every utility across the state done, or the country, done by October of 2024.
Okay.
And so at that time, we'll have an inventory of every service line that we have on our side and also the customer side. So we're responsible for inventorying all of that. And so as you can imagine, the customer side's a little tricky, just getting information. But that inventory is due in October, and there's also a public-facing portion of that. So the information from that inventory will be made public via our website. There'll probably a map that it shows green or red or some sort of coloring as to, whether it's it's non-lead, or we haven't found any lead, but if there's lead, there'll be a different color, or if it's an unknown, we don't have the information. And then we also have to come up with a replacement plan, which includes eliminating unknowns. And so we're going to be held every year to eliminating a certain percentage of pipes that need replaced or unknowns that need to be verified going forward. And so there'll be a report annually until we can say that every service line that we have is non-lead. And at that time, then you would be done as far as the EPA is concerned. But a lot of work has went into this. Mickey Kendall is an employee of ours that is leading that program, and he's done a great job. And we have 40,000 service lines that we've had to go back through all of our records dating back to the 20s to try to find as much information as we can on each one. And so it's been a pretty big undertaking. And so we're getting, there's a year left, but we're feeling the crunch of getting this done, and we'll have that report done and made public in October.
When did utilities switch away from lead pipes?
I want to say that there was a couple bands, 1987, 89. We've kind of given it a buffer of a couple more years just to let the inventory get used up. And so anything, I think it's 1950 and earlier, the EPA has said you're safe in saying that there's no lead. I mean, I said 1950, 1990 and earlier.
Which 1990 was like yesterday in my mind.
You're right. Yeah.
Not
so
30 years ago.
but that's a good thing though for us, because that allowed us to to speed up the process a little bit by saying these new houses that have been built, we don't have to worry as much about lead being in the system. So anything beyond that, they allowed us to say they're good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
This is my house from 1910.
Do you have any indications of what percent we might have around here of that type of lead pipes? Or
So, like I said, we haven't found any in our research to this point. We take care of those. If we did, we would take care of them and not wait until October. But we haven't. But we do have a lot of unknowns, and so we're still trying to figure out what the best way is to go about that. What is it? Water sampling? Is it potholing? Is it doing some physical verification? And so eliminating unknowns is going to be our biggest challenge going forward. It's really not lead. It's making, being able to justify and document the verification that we know what it is. And some of these things are really old, and so a lot of the times it's going to have to be, this next year is going to be spent going out and physically looking at the pipe in some of the locations. So we got a lot of
What
work to do.
geographic area are you doing this in? Your entire MUB or?
Every service line, including, all the systems that we've acquired, and now
Wow.
Cheat View is included in that now. So.
Is there a way is there a way for me to check to see if you've been able to document like my home to help?
After October, there will be, yes.
Okay.
So we're required after October to make that inventory public. Still not sure how that's going to look yet, because there's some security questions that still need to be answered. But yes, the EPA has mandated that inventory be made public after October.
Thank you.
Yep.
Unless somebody else, I didn't mean to.
Thank you.
Any other questions we can, just a couple other items. I'd also point out that Eric Carlson is with us this evening, board member. I'd like to acknowledge our monthly meetings. Kim and Emily, Damien come over and meet with Rich and I each month. I find those to be extremely helpful. I think Kim does as well. So that's been working out real well, especially on projects that we're working on together, and it's been very helpful. So thank you for the opportunity to come in this evening.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Barbara,
Thank you very
thanks.
much. Thank you for the history lesson as well. All right.
I think you're famous for things like that. She likes to take that other twist on something.
There's another family member that does a lot more work on this.
Some education.
We appreciate it.
Some education.
All right, that concludes our presentations for the evening. Now on to the public portion. Anyone wishing to speak? Do we have a list?
I think everyone else is here for a discussion item.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Maybe ask
then,
one more time.
even if you didn't sign up, drop something. Sorry. James. Thank you. Even if you didn't sign up, there's anyone wishing to speak right now? Once? Saw you. No, all right. That closes the public portion. Next, we move on to our items for discussion. First, we have an ordinance providing for the zoning reclassification of certain parcels of real estate in the 7th Ward of the City of Morgantown, Tax District 15, Tax Map 6, Parcel 62, commonly known as 501 Van Boris Road, from professional residential and office Pro District to an R3 multifamily residential district, amending Article 1331 of the Planning and Zoning Code of the City of Morgantown as shown on the exhibit hereto attached and declared to be part of this ordinance as if the same were fully set forth herein. And to present, we have Ricky Yeager, no Meister.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, City Manager Haas. As was already alluded to, on November 9th, the Morgantown Planning Commission had a public hearing to consider the rezoning petition before you to rezone 501 Van Boris from a pro district to a residential multifamily district. After review, the commission found that the proposed zoning map amendment was consistent with the city's 2013 comprehensive plan, as well as the plan update that's going through the adoption process now, entitled Morgan 2033, and that vote was unanimous. The applicant desires to rezone the property to convert a portion of the facility into a hospice care center. And while there is no specific land use classification for this type of facility, it is most closely associated with a nursing home, which is permitted in the R3 district. Staff requests that council move the ordinance providing for the rezoning classification to its next regular meeting agenda for consideration. If you have any questions, please let me know, and the applicant is present if there's any other questions as well. Thank you.
Any questions? No? We would like to move it. Do I need a motion?
No.
Just by acclamation, move to the agenda?
Yes, please.
Yep.
All right.
Second.
They
Okay.
sat here through the whole meeting. Is there anything they wish to add?
Yeah.
Like,
Sorry.
these gentlemen are with.
I apologize. This is only my third rodeo. Would you like to add anything to this?
No. Ricky did a great job, but seems like you talking about years ago. I remember on student government coming presenting to city council, and some of you were still here. So time does fly. Thank you.
All right. I guess we'll move that then to the agenda. Next one up, we have an ordinance providing the zoning reclassification of certain parcels of real estate in the 5th Ward of the City of Morgantown per Exhibit A from R1A Single Family Residential District and R2 Single and Two-Family Residential District to a B1 Neighborhood Business District, amending Article 1331 of the Planning and Zoning Code of the City of Morgantown as shown on Exhibit B here to attached and declared to be part of this ordinance as if the same were fully set forth herein. And lucky us, we get Ricky one more time. I was
Thank you,
supposed to
and
add a song there, by the way, just to be clear.
What was that?
I was told to add a song there, but I won't. so
A
please.
song?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's an 80s song about Ricky, is that right? Our turn now?
The chat afterward, I guess. But again, good evening and thank you. On November 9th, Morgantown Planning Commission held a public hearing on the matter before you to rezone 55 parcels of land along Richwood Avenue from their respective zoning districts to a B1 neighborhood district. After considering all the evidence presented and comments that were presented, the commission made a motion finding that the proposed zoning map amendment was consistent with the 2013 plan as well as the plan update that's moving through council now, and made a motion to enact said zoning amendment. That motion passed 6-1-0. The applicant desires to rezone the properties to facilitate the development of a mixed-use project in the Woodburn neighborhood and adjacent to downtown. And in doing so, the applicant also intends to consolidate the property and further restrict potential uses through the minor subdivision process. These restricted uses include assisted living facilities, charitable, fraternal, or social organizations, churches, places of worship, dance or social club, youth, drive-through facility, emergency shelter, funeral home, golf course, group residential facility, group residential home, kennel commercial, outdoor flea market, passenger station, motor bus, and railroad, we still have that, pawn shop, and the reuse of closed, vacant school or church facilities. In a separate case, MNS 23-05, the Planning Commission approved the minor subdivision application, consolidating the 55 properties with the restrictions listed above. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those, and of course, the applicant is here to answer any additional questions or concerns. Thank you.
Question?
They also sat through the meeting. We should let
Well,
them.
I'm going to, but first we have questions for Ricky. I promise, I'm not gonna. Is there anything you would like to add to our?
It might be helpful just to explain.
For those watching at home on the YouTube.
Yeah, just the goal behind the reclassification.
Sure. Russ Rogerson with the Morgantown Area Partnership and the Mon County Development Authority and a couple other organizations. Happy to be here this evening. Appreciate your consideration on this project. We really believe this is an opportunity. We think it's an opportunity for the surrounding area, for the city, for the university, and a chance to redevelop an area into a much more impactful resource and service providing and people gathering place for the community. So we need to go through this process of the B1 in order to get this project launched, and we're also entering in some refinancing arrangements so we can actually see a project that we've been working on for 3 years come to fruition and get started and be the asset that we believe it to be.
Has it only been 3 years? It seems like 15.
Good things take time sometimes.
I thought 3 years was pretty good.
Oh, seems like forever.
Some things take decades.
Well, we're ready and we're excited to move this project forward.
Move it. Or you have questions?
So, Ricky, you see this as in line with the strategic plan?
Both the comprehensive plan, that was the.
Oh, the comprehensive plan. I'm sorry. Our comprehensive plan calls for, facilitating mixed use of housing, or mixed development of housing, of several different housing types. The rezoning of this would disallow that. So, I guess, could you just explain to me, outline to me the process by which you come to deem something as adhering to the comprehensive plan, and how this specifically, since it is going to violate that part of our comprehensive plan, that goal of our comprehensive plan, how this could meet that, clear that bar, I guess.
Sure. So I think you're referring to the 2013 plan, and specifically where it's talking about.
Well, in our update, we talk about.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. And in that district, in the future land use management plan, identifies it as residential mixed use, and it's very clear in terms of the terminology. It says that land management plan defines residential mixed use areas that are comprised of multifamily housing with ground floor activating commercial uses, particularly at or near street intersections, and then engage the public realm. So in that regard, the B1 district specifically allows for the type of development in that first sentence, so to speak. When looking at the comprehensive plan, staff kind of looks at it, let me back up. So the 2013 plan recommended that the city do a focus area study and on this particular area. And then that's the report that came out, and it's mentioned in the staff report as the 2018 report that was a review by the Planning Commission, adopted as an appendage, but it never went forward to City Council to actually amend the comprehensive plan update. In that discussion, there was a significant move and much discussion about moving to an R3 zone in this particular area. One, to facilitate the multiple types of housing, but to also allow more commercial activity to come into this district, because it's a trade-off. R3 is definitely geared more residential, B1 more commercial, but they blend the two. That plan also recommended that the city look at overlay districts and other measures to incentivize development to happen. Short of having those things, and based on our conversations with the developer, the B1 is the best way to move the project forward in order to allow mixed-use development, which we all agree, both in the 2013 plan and in the 2023 plan, is desired for this particular area. So again, that's how staff kind of looked at it. Again, you had really two options in order to do it outside of a PUD situation, and this is what was presented.
There was some discussion during the meeting of an overlay. Could you explain that sort of process, why that's not included?
Yeah, so again, the overlay district that was discussed in the 2018 focus area study said that the city should look at specifically allowing more commercial uses in the R3 district that weren't permitted in the zoning code, but limiting them to that particular geography. I think the developer working with the community, putting these restrictions tries to kind of pare that back without potentially, having an overlay district on the books. But the most recent example that I'm aware of where the city facilitated a process to create an overlay was for the Wilds Hill neighborhood. And in that process, there were specific uses that were not permitted in the zoning districts that are currently there that were added, that said, okay, because we want to allow for more development opportunities or infill redevelopment, we're going to allow these to happen in this very defined geography. So again, short of having that, we're left with two potential zoning districts that could accommodate the type of development that the comprehensive plan says is appropriate in both this particular neighborhood and adjacent to our downtown.
Thank you for answering those questions.
Can I ask how, we didn't really get into this at the Planning Commission, and I understand we're in like this gray area between the 2013 and the current comprehensive plan that we're in the process of finalizing. But in that new comprehensive plan, I moved and we, as a council, agreed to add this as a focus study area, small study area. How is it that we're determining this is in line with the comprehensive plan when that study has not yet been done? I haven't seen anything on that personally.
Yeah, so the 2013 plan is recommending that the city do another focus area study of this particular area, but based on the plan itself and more particularly the future land use map. That basically that's what staff and the planning commission have to look at. It says if we're going to change the use of this property for the future, what does it need to look like based on the conditions at the time and what future growth projections are based on a lot of different factors. So the future land use map identifies this particular area as a residential mixed use and defines it as I just stated before. So if you look at, this is what the plan is saying, even I know it hasn't been adopted yet, but this is what the plan is saying. What will facilitate this type of development? There's really only two land use classifications that could potentially do that, and I don't think you want to look at any other higher intensity commercial uses that would allow for mixed use dwellings or other types of development that would be more intensive than that. So, you know, that's what we have to look at, and that's what we have to base our decisions on.
I fully anticipate that come January, probably, that's the next time that the Woodburn Association of Neighbors meets, we will then very quickly at the Planning Commission see a text amendment to our zoning code that would allow a neighborhood business district to have more of a neighborhood type feel. Like B1, which is supposed to be neighborhood business district, allows the least type of residential uses for whatever unknown reason that ever came about. So that is the Woodburn neighborhoods plan, to my knowledge. And that's not to say that this developer is going to do anything other than what this developer wants to do. But the idea that, you know, a duplex or multifamily unit is not allowed, it's prohibited in a neighborhood district, just seems crazy.
Yeah, I guess I bring those questions up is because, as you've said, there's two that we could be talking about here. There's B1 and most likely R3, right? That fit the comprehensive plan. And it seems, I mean, you know, just as speaking as one councilor with their opinion, that we're choosing B1 not on the basis of what do we want to see this, you know, for 50 years down the line, but how do we want to see this development move forward? And so I guess I don't want to make decisions based on what would make a very specific development move forward, rather see what's best for the city, the neighborhood. And that's, again, given my opinion, I don't expect you to respond. But there's, like I said, there's two options there. We've chosen one because that is what the developer wants. We've not chosen the other because we don't want to see, you know, this project necessarily fail, which I understand that too. Everybody wants to see this redeveloped. And nobody wants to see like empty homes throughout here. And I guess for our consideration, what I would present to this council is it worth, is what we're considering worth districting this as B1? Feel free.
No, understand your points, well made. But just want to remind you, just even if it was rezoned to R3, that doesn't mean that anybody that purchases, acquires, develops property would have to build two-family townhomes.
Absolutely.
And to Councilor Trumbull's point,
They just can't now.
Right, and I think that's where we do need to, as staff and the commission, need to address that, because for whatever reason, it wasn't a part of that when that district was formulated. But at the same time, again, going back to that 2018 study, there was a strong emphasis on allowing more density and allowing more commercial uses. And without having all those things in place right now, that's why we feel that it's consistent with the plan, because the B1 allows for the more commercial uses that will make projects go, and it also allows for the type of housing that clearly we want to see, at least in this particular area.
I have a question too, if you don't mind. The overlay district we talk about, how are those determined? How are they put in place?
The overlay districts? So
Any overlay district.
Yeah, so that was a pretty comprehensive process, I believe, that my predecessor initiated with the Wallace Hills community in response to development that was happening around the Jones Place and the development that's up there with some of the student housing. But that usually is initiated by the Planning Commission, would prepare and work with the community, and I went back through the files and saw there were many, many meetings held with the Wallace Hill community about the type of development that they would like to see that would be appropriate for that area. And then that basically got translated into the overlay district that's been adopted by the Planning Commission and City Council. And those are the restrictions that any development that goes into those areas in the future will have to follow. So there was a lot of community input, and then those were codified, or the recommendations or the standards were codified in the district. Same as for the several overlay districts in the Sunnyside neighborhood area. There are several districts there that are overlay districts.
I'm just wondering what the driver is for that. When you hear, discussion that you would like to see more multi-unit housing, what causes that? And you know that the community is already talking about that. What causes that to become a reality? What causes us to move and create an overlay district?
Well, again, going back to that 2018 plan, there are several passages in that, and I've reviewed it. There's several passages that say the reason why we need to do this is to incentivize private investment in this distressed area. This is the why we need to look at higher intensities and adding more commercial uses. And that was the impetus behind some of the recommendations. Straightforward is saying we need to encourage investment in here, and we need to move from where we are now to something that would be more attractive for redevelopment opportunities in the future. We just didn't get to the point after that 2018 of adopting or going through the process of creating the overlay district and doing those other things.
Did you determine why that was never sent to council, or why council never took up that 2018 study as an addendum?
I have not.
Do any of you know? I wasn't here then.
I do not know. I'm wondering if it was.
I don't understand why the planning commission went through the trouble of doing it and making this, it's quite a document. It's quite large. I read it before the planning commission meeting, and it just never went to council. Planning commission adopted it, and council never.
That type of thing sometimes is when there's a transition in employees, or it might not be the planner, it might be the person working under the planner, or some kind of usually it would come to us. I can't imagine.
It's just
such a
frustrating
document.
that the planning commission made this document, and now we're like, well, you can't really pay any attention to it because it was never adopted.
Well, there was, if I may, there were recommendations in there that said that the staff should at the time start preparing zoning text amendments and starting this overlay process to move through the proper channels to get it adopted and get it formulated. It just never got to that point. As it stood, it could have been adopted as an amendment to the plan, but there were no particular, this is what you should do. It was more recommendations generalized that staff were supposed to implement.
Mr. Carlson's really.
Yes, he is. Go for it.
If I may, Eric Carlson, Morgantown Area Partnership and the Mon County Development Authority. We would be very much in favor of a text amendment and/or the overlay to allow more housing options into this area and/or into the B1. From what I understand in speaking with Director Yeager, the overlay is a more tedious and long-term project, whereas text amendment
is a much shorter process. And in looking at the B1 district, held a job very similar to Ricky in a different state previously. When looking at the B1 and how it is around the city, it is a low risk when you do a text amendment, given the pockets of B1 supposed to be a neighborhood business zone, so they are adjacent to neighborhoods, and with the other restrictions in place, such as height, you wouldn't risk by allowing a residential-only building seeing a 7-story monstrosity, as buildings are capped out at 40 feet. So we would be in favor of that, of either of those changes, but from a planning standpoint, with the expeditious speed that a text amendment would come, that would give us more options to consider in a more expeditious process.
For us, for our audience, for anything else, explain the difference, what you're talking about here. What's the procedure? Text amendment is exactly what as opposed to an overlay?
So I will refer to your local expert.
So the text amendment is saying in the city's permitted land use table, for instance.
So you're adding to the table.
Correct. So it's saying multifamily dwellings or 2-family dwellings or townhouses which are not currently permitted would be permitted by right.
And what's
or
the
through
process? How
conditional
long
use.
does that take?
Uh,
What hoops do we need to jump through?
Planning Commission and the council. So once it's initiated, 3 months, given legal notice requirements and that. So it's about a 3-month process.
And that could then give us, in that particular instance, in the B1 area, the possibility of multi-unit housing.
And that could go concurrent to our current petition, which
I mean, the
still
B1
has
is
another
fixed either
month and a
way.
half or 2 months before it could possibly be approved too.
I understand.
We welcome the flexibility.
But can you support it?
So I appreciate weaving in these thoughts of having different housing options. Also appreciate, in this situation, the property owners looking to look at B1 instead of another option in the B range, like a B3, because of those height limitations that were spoken about. That'll keep it to, what is that, 3 to 4 stories?
40 feet.
Yeah, 40 feet. But I mean, what does that translate for a person listening? What does that translate to usually?
I think it's 3 to 4, 3 to 5.
Yeah, well, and we have topography, so one building
Right.
might have all the different heights.
Right above the road.
So, what I appreciate about B1 is this idea of having the street level businesses and having enough of those consistently, even if we have the opportunity to have other types of housing, which would be helpful as well, but having enough of a business district that was neighborhood scale, like on a human scale, so that if someone were going through the district, they had the opportunity to have some continuity for some streets and some corners and some areas of the business portion of it, so that it was, I don't know, that it felt like an actual neighborhood business district rather than a stray business here or there. I think is valuable at that location where you're kind of transitioning kind of down the hill and you're getting toward the bottom and you're close to campus and you're close to the downtown, and it would be advantageous to have it feel like, if it's going to have businesses, like an actual place of business with a range of businesses in that location. So anyway, I'm just.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and going from your example that you just provided, going the other direction, going from the B4, which is the urban core, moving out to B2 and B1, it's a transition the other direction as well, because right on the other side of all this property is a B2 district, right, that runs between Willie and around Richwood and that area. So it's a step down as well from that land intensive use there.
So, and the other thing is the housing above the businesses which provide customers. So I think sometimes people forget in downtowns how important that is to have the large number of people living there, so that you have customers for the businesses. So if you're going to put a coffee shop in, or you're going to have some kind of a place that someone might
Urgent
frequent.
care.
Pardon?
Urgent care.
Urgent care. Then you would have an urgent care. I know my family, we live a few blocks away from the hospital, and also even closer to an urgent care. I know and now there have been a couple of coffee shops that have moved nearby to where I happen to live, and that's huge in my household for different family members that want to walk to one business or another to have that available. So I just think this will make a very desirable development at this particular location.
We're looking at zoning it B1, which is a neighborhood business district, but this does not, to what I've seen, it does not have a neighborhood focus. There is a hell of a lot of parking that's being added and planned for. They're expecting I'm bringing a lot of people in. It's not necessarily walkable neighborhood businesses.
But that doesn't detract. I know that the businesses near where I happen to live that are coming in also have parking, and that doesn't detract from people in the neighborhood that appreciate the walkability of a neighborhood business. So it's an interesting dynamic, trying to hit the, making sure that development's on a human scale and comfortable for people and a place where people want to live. So I appreciate the comments about offering up more options for housing, but I think that additionally this is useful to have B1 where it's height restricted and would feel more comfortable for those who live right there.
Thank you for those explanations and more info. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Move it to
Move to the agenda, yes.
Sure.
It's gonna have to go on an agenda.
Right, and then we'll have more discussion when it gets there.
Yep.
Lively discussion, all right?
Yep.
By acclamation, okay.
Yep.
With that concludes our committee of the whole for November 28th.
Move to adjourn.
Now we're waiting in the morning.
Pardon?
Second.
Thank you, all right. And
Starting in January.